Thursday, September 14th, 2023, AGNDD Intellireport topic. Carl Jung. Please pardon any visual and informational inaccuracies in this entirely AI-generated Wikipedia-sourced video article.
Carl Gustav Jung, born in 1875 in Switzerland, had a complex upbringing marked by his mother's depression and his own struggles with identity. As a child, he developed a fascination with symbols and rituals, which would later shape his understanding of the human psyche. Carl Gustav Jung was born on July 26, 1875, in Kesswil, Switzerland. He was the first surviving son of Paul Achilles Jung and Emily Preiswerk. Jung's father was a pastor, while his mother suffered from depression and had spiritual experiences at night. Jung had a close relationship with his father and was deeply affected by his mother's absences and depression. After residing in Laufen for 3 years, the family relocated to Kleinhuningen, which brought Emily closer to her family and improved her mood. Jung's sister, Johanna Gertrude, was born when he was 9. Jung was a solitary and introverted child who believed he had two personalities, one modern and one from the past. He had a close relationship with his parents, but was disappointed by his father's approach to faith. As a child, he engaged in a ceremonial act with a mannequin and stones, which later influenced his understanding of symbols and rituals. At the age of 12, he fainted whenever he had to go to school, but overcame it when he realized the importance of academic excellence. This experience taught him about neurosis. Jung initially wanted to become a preacher or minister, but his interest shifted to psychiatry and medicine. He studied medicine at the University of Basel and later worked at the Bergholzli Psychiatric Hospital. He developed a close friendship and professional association with Sigmund Freud, but their relationship fractured in 1912 due to theoretical differences. Jung went through a transformative psychological experience which Henry Ellenberger called a creative illness. This period was exacerbated by the outbreak of World War I. In 1903, Carl Jung married Emma Rauschenbach, the daughter of a wealthy industrialist. They had 5 children together. Emma became interested in Jung's research and eventually became a psychoanalyst herself. Their marriage lasted until Emma's death in 1955. During their marriage, Jung had at least one extramarital affair with his patient Sabina Spielrein, and there are allegations of an affair with Tony Wolff as well. Jung and Freud influenced each other during the early years of Jung's career. Jung became interested in psychiatry as a student and was introduced to Freud's writings by his mentor, Eugen Bleuler. Jung became a proponent of Freud's psychoanalysis, and their collaboration lasted for 6 years. They traveled together to the United States, and Jung was proposed as the president of the International Psychoanalytical Association, although he only served a 2-year term due to objections from Freud's colleagues in Vienna. Jung and Freud had disagreements over various aspects of psychology, including the nature of libido and the concept of the unconscious. These tensions reached a peak in 1912 when Freud visited a colleague without visiting Jung, leading to a strained relationship. Jung's views on the unconscious differed from Freud's, as he believed it was more than just a repository of repressed emotions. In 1913, they met for the last time at a psychoanalytical congress where Jung gave a talk on psychological types. The publication of Jung's book, The Psychology of the Unconscious, in 1912 caused a rift between him and Freud. Freud rejected Jung's ideas, leading to a break in their relationship. This rejection had a significant impact on Jung, causing him to feel isolated and on the verge of a mental breakdown. During this time, he wrote his personal diaries known as the Red Book, which were only partially published in 2009 and later published in their entirety as the Black Books in 2020. Jung later revised and retitled his 1912 book as Symbols of Transformation in 1952. Jung gave talks at the Psychomedical Society in London in 1913 and 1914. However, his travels were cut short due to the war. Nonetheless, his ideas gained recognition in England thanks to Constance Long, who translated and published the first English volume of his writings. In 1913, Carl Jung had a profound experience with the unconscious mind, which he recorded in small journals known as the Black Book. He induced hallucinations through a process of active imagination and documented everything he experienced. The material went through several edits and interpretations by Jung himself. After his death, his grandson decided to publish the Red Book, a large leather-bound book containing Jung's transcribed notes and paintings. It was published in 2009, and only a few people had seen it before then. The Red Book is considered significant in the development of Jung's theories. During World War I, Jung served as an army doctor and was appointed as the commandant of an internment camp for British officers and soldiers in Switzerland. As Switzerland was neutral, they had to intern personnel from both sides of the conflict who crossed their borders to avoid capture. Jung worked to enhance the living conditions of the stranded soldiers and motivated them to pursue educational opportunities by attending university courses. Jung ended his isolation in the late 1910s and began publishing journal articles. In 1921, he released Psychological Types, a highly influential book. Over the next 10 years, he continued to publish actively and also traveled abroad. Constance Long organized a seminar for Jung in Cornwall in 1920, and another seminar was held in 1923 by Jung's protege Helton Godwin Baynes. In 1935, Jung gave lectures at the Tavistock Clinic in London, and in 1938 he received an honorary degree from the University of Oxford. Jung also gave a presidential address at the International Medical Congress for Psychotherapy in Oxford. In 1946, he became the first honorary president of the Society of Analytical Psychology in London. During his collaboration with Freud, Jung visited the U.S. in 1909 and gave lectures at Clark University, where he and Freud received honorary degrees. In 1912, Jung gave lectures at Fordham University, which were later published as Psychology of the Unconscious. In 1924 to 1925, Jung made a trip financed by Fowler McCormick and George Porter, visiting Chief Mountain Lake of the Taos Pueblo in New Mexico. He returned to America in 1936 and 1937 for lectures and honorary degrees at Harvard and Yale University. In October 1925, Carl Jung embarked on an expedition to East Africa with two companions. They traveled through Kenya and Uganda to Mount Elgon, where Jung hoped to learn about primitive psychology from the isolated residents. However, he ultimately realized that the insights he gained were more about himself and European psychology. One of Jung's famous concepts is kinship libido, which refers to the instinctive sense of belonging to a group or family. This is similar to the Bantu term Ubuntu, which emphasizes humanity and interconnectedness. In December 1937, Carl Jung embarked on a trip to India with Fowler McCormick. This was his first experience of being directly influenced by a foreign culture. In India, he was able to have extensive conversations, unlike in Africa, where language barriers limited his interactions. Hindu philosophy played a significant role in his understanding of symbolism and the unconscious. Although he chose not to meet with Ramana Maharshi, whom he described as absorbed in the self, during his travels he visited the Vedagiriswarar temple and had a conversation about its symbols and sculptures, which he later wrote about in his book Ion. Jung fell seriously ill during this trip and spent 2 weeks in a Calcutta hospital. After 1938, his travels were limited to Europe. Jung became a professor at the University of Basel in 1943, but resigned due to a heart attack the following year. He then led a more private life and corresponded with Father Victor White, a close friend who visited him regularly. Jung fell ill again in 1952, but continued to publish books until his death. His works included an analysis of UFO sightings and a contribution to Man and His Symbols. Jung died in 1961 from circulatory diseases. Carl Jung received honorary doctorates from several prestigious universities, including Clark University, Fordham University, Harvard University, University of Allahabad, University of Benares, University of Calcutta, University of Oxford, University of Geneva, and Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. He was also awarded a literature prize from the city of Zurich, made titular professor of ETH Zurich, appointed honorary member of the Royal Society of Medicine, and received various Festschrifts and honorary titles throughout his career. Jung's thought was influenced by his family background, which included an interest in the occult and academic theology. His father's side had important figures like his grandfather, a physician and scientist, and Lotte Kessner, the niece of Johann Wolfgang Goethe. While Jung founded analytical psychology, he also explored areas like quantum physics, vitalism, philosophy, alchemy, astrology, sociology, literature, and the arts. Although some saw him as a mystic, Jung preferred to be seen as a man of science who aimed to connect philosophy and psychology. Analytical psychology, developed by Carl Jung, encompasses various concepts such as anima and animus, archetype, collective unconscious, complex, extroversion and introversion, individuation, interpersonal relationship, persona, psychological types, shadow, self, and synchronicity. These concepts explore the contrasexual aspect of the psyche, universal symbols and recurring themes, repressed images and experiences, personality traits, the process of personal fulfillment, interpersonal dynamics, adaptation and convenience, unconscious aspects of the personality, the central governing concept of individuation, and the principle of simultaneous occurrence of phenomena. The notion of a personal unconscious, popularized by Freud and Jung, is widely accepted. It consists of repressed or forgotten thoughts and emotions. In contrast, the collective unconscious is not acquired through personal experiences and contains universal elements common to all humans. It encompasses evolutionary biology, history, and psychological development. Jung believes that causal factors in personal psychology stem from the impersonal physical layer and universal physiology. The collective unconscious provides a framework for understanding universal motivating urges and instincts. Archetypes are universal symbols and patterns found in religious art, mythology, and fairy tales across cultures. They are pre-configurations in nature that give rise to repeating experiences and have been deduced through storytelling over thousands of years. Archetypes exist independently of current events and exert influence across all domains of experience. Jung believed there are as many archetypes as there are typical situations in life, and they have a dynamic mutual influence on one another. Examples of archetypes include the shadow, the hero, and the trickster. The shadow is a part of the unconscious mind that contains repressed ideas, weaknesses, desires, instincts, and shortcomings. It is formed through the individual's adaptation to societal norms and personal values. Carl Jung argues that the shadow plays a crucial role in balancing one's psyche, and without its integration, individuals can become shallow and overly concerned with others' opinions. The shadow can manifest in dreams or visions as a dark, wild figure. Jung was one of the first to define introversion and extroversion in a psychological context. He theorized that each person falls into one of two categories, introvert or extrovert. Introverts are focused on the internal world of reflection, while extroverts are focused on the outside world of objects and action. This differs from modern theories that focus on behaviorist traits. Jungian introversion and extroversion are expressed as a subjective or objective perspective on the world. In his psychological theory, Carl Jung discusses the concept of the persona, which is a consciously created identity formed through socialization and experience. The persona acts as a mask for the collective psyche, pretending individuality and shaping how both the self and others perceive the individual. Jung sees the persona as a compromise between the individual and society, serving to make a certain impression on others while also hiding part of the true nature of the individual. In management theory, Jung's ideas are influential, as managers often need to create a management persona and evaluate the personalities of their workers. Jung believed that life has a spiritual purpose beyond material goals, and that our main task is to discover and fulfill our deep potential. He called this journey of transformation individuation, and believed it to be at the heart of all religions. Unlike Freud, Jung believed that spiritual experience was essential to our well-being. He recommended spirituality as a cure for alcoholism and indirectly influenced the formation of Alcoholics Anonymous through his patient Roland Hazard III. The 12-step program of AA has a psychological backdrop influenced by Jung's ideas. Jung had a fascination with the paranormal and occult, attending seances and witnessing parapsychic phenomena. Initially, he attributed these experiences to psychological causes, but later began to doubt this explanation and considered the existence of spirits. However, he couldn't find material evidence to support this. Jung's ideas culminated in the concept of synchronicity, which suggests that certain coincidences have profound meaning and impact on observers. Despite his own experiments failing to confirm synchronicity, Jung held on to the idea as an explanation for ESP and the functioning of the I Ching. Jung's concept of synchronicity, which suggests that certain events are not causally connected, influenced the philosophical interpretation of quantum physics. This idea was particularly influential on physicist Wolfgang Pauli, with whom Jung developed the concept of unus mundus and its connection to non-locality through their correspondence. Other physicists were also influenced by this concept. It is important to note that this influence was limited to the philosophical interpretation of quantum physics, not the scientific aspects. Jung's interest in alchemy began in the late 1920s when he encountered a translation of The Secret of the Golden Flower. He later explored the psychological significance of alchemy analyzing its symbols and relating them to the psychoanalytical process. In his book Psychology and Alchemy, published in 1944, he argued that alchemy represented the transformation of the soul and the individuation process. His last major work, Mysterium Conjunctionis, focused on the archetype of the sacred marriage between sun and moon and further explored the stages of alchemical transformation as symbolic of personal growth. Jung believed that art could be a powerful tool for healing and recovery from trauma and emotional distress. He suggested that art expression and dream images could help alleviate and contain feelings of fear, anxiety, and trauma. Jung himself used art as a means of personal exploration and found it to be more than just a recreational activity during times of emotional distress. Dance/movement therapy, initially developed by Jung and Tony Wolfe in 1916, gained recognition in the 1950s when therapists Marion Chase and Mary Whitehouse rediscovered it. Whitehouse, a student of Martha Graham and Mary Wigman, became a dancer and teacher of modern dance. Trudy Scoop, a Swiss dancer, also played a significant role in the development of dance/movement therapy in the U.S. Jung believed that the state had become a substitute for God in society, leading to the suppression of individual rights and the development of a fanatical worship of the state. He saw the state as a form of slavery, where individuals who knew how to manipulate it gained power. Jung also compared the displays and rituals of the state to religious ceremonies, suggesting that they served a similar purpose in society. This displacement of religious forces by the state resulted in the dislocation of the individual's religious drive and a sense of marginalization. During World War II, Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, had contact with Alan Dulles, who worked for the Office of Strategic Services, the predecessor of the CIA. Jung provided valuable insights into Hitler's psychological state. Dulles referred to Jung as Agent 488 Inches and acknowledged his significant contribution to the Allied cause by gathering information from individuals connected to the other side. This service remained classified even after the war. Jung's involvement in Nazi Germany's Psychotherapy Medical Association and his anti-Semitic remarks in 1934 reveal a different aspect of his work, contradicting his otherwise renowned contributions to psychology. In a 1934 publication, Carl Jung made controversial statements about the Aryan unconscious and the Jewish people's inability to create their own cultural form. Andrew Samuels argues that these remarks demonstrate Jung's anti-Semitism, but also acknowledges the pioneering nature of Jung's contributions. Jung became the president of a psychotherapy society in Germany in 1933, which excluded Jews and endorsed Nazi positions. Jung distanced himself from the society's pro-Nazi statement but maintained a position distinct from the Nazis. He eventually resigned from the presidency in 1939. Some scholars believe Jung's anti-Semitism contributed to his split from Freud and his circle of psychoanalysts who were predominantly Jewish. Jung's interest in European mythology and folk psychology was shared by the Nazis, but he distanced himself from them in the 1930s. In his 1936 essay on Wotan, he criticized Hitler's influence on Germany. He described Hitler as a possessed man who had infected the nation. In a 1949 interview, Jung stated that he had never been a Nazi sympathizer or anti-Semitic, and his relationships with Jewish colleagues and patients disproved these accusations. He claimed that his words had been tampered with or misunderstood. Jung's views on homosexuality were progressive for his time. He believed that it should not be criminalized or regulated by legal authorities. He also argued that homosexuality does not diminish a person's worth in society. However, he did suggest that it could be a result of psychological immaturity, but only if it is not an inherent aspect of a person's nature. Jung's theories are considered relevant to the study of unconscious phenomena in the psychedelic state. His correspondence with researchers in the 1950s and recent neuroimaging studies suggest a connection between psychedelics and archetypal experiences. This has led to a re-evaluation of Jung's work in the context of contemporary psychedelic and neuroscience research. Jung's exploration of cognitive domains alien to Western thought aligns with the experiences of indigenous cultures using psychedelics. Jung's concept of individuation and the integration of the unconscious is considered pertinent to modern psychedelic research. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, and socionics were derived from Jung's psychological types. Nonetheless, the MBTI is regarded as pseudoscience and lacks widespread acceptance among psychologists. Jung's concepts concerning religion, dream analysis, and symbolization have greatly influenced popular psychology, spirituality, and the New Age movement. Psychoanalysis is no longer extensively studied in psychology departments and is being overshadowed by more scientific and biological approaches. Numerous organizations and institutions are committed to studying and applying Jungian psychology. Various authors have incorporated Carl Jung and his ideas into their works of fiction. Lawrence van der Post claimed to have had a friendship with Jung, which inspired books and a film. Hermann Hesse was treated by one of Jung's students, leading to his interest in psychoanalysis. Morris West's novel is based on a case mentioned by Jung in his autobiography. Robertson Davies made Jungian analysis a central theme in his novel. Olga Tokarczuk's novel draws from Jung's doctoral dissertation. These works explore Jung's ideas and their impact on characters and stories. The Swiss painter Peter Birkhauser received treatment from Marie-Louise von Franz, a student of Jung, and corresponded with Jung about translating dream symbolism into art. Jackson Pollock, an American abstract expressionist, underwent Jungian psychotherapy in 1939 with Joseph Henderson, which influenced his artwork. Although there are claims that Jung visited Liverpool, he actually recorded a dream about it. A statue of Jung was erected in Matthew Street in 1987, but was vandalized and replaced with a more durable version in 1993. David Bowie, The Police, Banco de Gaia, Tool, Luis Alberto Spinetta, the Beatles, and BTS are all musicians or bands that have been influenced by the concepts of Carl Jung in their music. Bowie in particular described himself as Jungian and incorporated Jungian ideas into his songs and performances. The South Korean band BTS has released albums based on Jung's map of the soul, exploring concepts such as persona, shadow, and ego. These musicians have found inspiration in Jung's theories of the unconscious and self-discovery. Federico Fellini incorporated Jungian dream interpretation into his films, emphasizing the idea of dreams as a connection to universal archetypes. Jung was interviewed by the BBC in 1959, and a documentary on his work was produced in 1985. Stanley Kubrick's film Full Metal Jacket explores the duality of man, referencing Jung's ideas. David Cronenberg's A Dangerous Method depicts Jung's relationships with Freud and Spielrein. Jung's influence can also be seen in recent films like The Lighthouse and Soul. Additionally, Jung is featured in animated series and has been the subject of documentaries and radio programs. The Persona series, Nights into Dream series, Xenogears, Xenosaga Trilogy, and Control are all influenced by Carl Jung's theories. These games explore Jungian concepts such as archetypes, individuation, synchronicity, and shadow selves. Jung's ideas are represented through gameplay mechanics, storytelling, and symbolism in these games. This is a list of books written by Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. The books cover various topics such as psychology, the unconscious mind, alchemy, mythology, and spirituality. Some notable works include Psychological Types, Man and His Symbols, and Memories, Dreams, Reflections. Jung's most famous work, The Red Book, was published posthumously in 2009 and offers insights into his personal journey and exploration of the human psyche. The list provided is a compilation of the works of Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. It includes various books and lectures on topics such as psychiatric studies, psychoanalysis, symbolism, personality development, and the collective unconscious. The list spans from 1902 to 1959 and includes supplementary volumes and seminars on different subjects. The works were edited by Herbert Redd, Michael Fordham, and Gerhard Adler, with W. McGuire as the executive editor. In conclusion, Carl Gustav Jung's early experiences with his family and his own personal struggles shaped his understanding of psychology and laid the foundation for his groundbreaking work in the field.
Thank you for watching this AGNDD Intellireport. Like, subscribe, and click the bell button to get notified during new uploads. And make sure to tune in next time. Stay safe and healthy. Cheers.